Hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. My name is Amy Kerr. I'm the Vice President of Recruiting here at Worldwide. And I'm lucky to be joined by Ron. Ron, you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Ron Hoppy, and I have the privilege of serving as CEO of Worldwide Health Staff Solutions. And Amy and I are looking forward to the discussion today, to your questions today, as we explore sort of 2024, the year in review for international recruitment.
Yeah, and I think for all of you who are watching live, let us know where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. Please put your questions in the comments. We're happy to answer them as we go through. Ron, 2024, this is year 26 for Worldwide Health Staff Solutions, and it's been an exciting year.
It sure has, Amy. As we often say, in the office, there's never a dull moment. 2024 has been a year, I think, of ongoing change, uncertainty around the visa bulletin, questions and even concerns about the impact of the recent U.S. election and a number of other things. And in the face of all of that, I'm very excited to share with our candidates that 2024 is going to be a record year for the Worldwide Health Staff team. Not that that's the main point here, but rather that the demand for international nurses from U.S. healthcare providers across the country continues to be strong.
So maybe let's start with talking about what is the same from last year. And so it looks like, and we're waiting for the results of Q4 for 2024. Obviously, we're not quite done yet, but it does look like the RN NCLEX test results remain very strong. And there's many takers, many nurses throughout the world who still have a big dream to come to the US. Record numbers in 2023, few less in 2024, but still really high numbers of nurses across the world that have internationally taken and passed the NCLEX exam.
Yeah, I think that's correct, Amy. And as you said, we're waiting to see what the Q4 numbers will be. 2023 really was an amazing, astonishing year in terms of the number of NCLEX test takers and test passers. I think part of that was the introduction and the implementation of the new next gen NCLEX exam in April of 2023. I think had an impact. We've seen a number of additional testing centers open since the beginning of 2023. I think that's contributed. I think even though we're seeing the numbers in 2024 down somewhat from 2023 historical levels, I think if we look back over 5-6 years pre-pandemic, the number of passers in 2024 is still very, very strong.
And I think interestingly, and maybe as a result of the new generation NCLEX, but the pass rate is up. So slightly higher pass rate for international passers this year than it was in 2023.
Yeah. I think, the number 52.6 to 55.7 may not seem like a whole lot, but I think it's very significant. It should be encouraging to all of the nurses that have joined us here today or maybe viewing this recording at some point in the future, that the test pass rate is going up. I think if we look back a couple of years holistically at the international candidate pool, the pass rate was probably just under 50%. So the pass rate is increased by at least 10%. So that's certainly encouraging as we look at the numbers. And I hope it's encouraging to everyone who is just starting on their NCLEX journey to see that, in fact, the pass rate is going up and to give them the confidence that they can do it as well. They can be successful. And So we'll continue to watch this closely, but very positive development this year for sure.
Let's talk a little bit about the U.S. international RN demand. Um, and I think that the truth is that every year the number of international nurses hired by hospitals has gone up significantly. One statistic that I thought was really interesting is that 16% of the nurses working in hospitals in 2010 were foreign educated. And in 2022, 32% of nurses in hospitals were foreign educated, which is double the amount of nurses in hospitals were foreign educated in just 12 years.
Yeah, it really is remarkable. And, when when you boil it down or summarize it this way, you see just how impactful international recruitment has been to the U.S. healthcare workforce and how important it is going forward. If if you just took the 15 or 16% out of the current workforce, it would cease to function. This I think is a very, very clear um, data point or data points to indicate just how important international recruiting is, the contributions that international nurses are making. And I think it continues to speak to US employers' interest in and willingness to engage in international recruitment, particularly in the direct hire model of international recruitment. And perhaps we'll talk about that a little more later. Um, but when we consider that the number of internationally educated nurses as a percentage of the US healthcare workforce continues to increase, we at Worldwide Health Staff Solutions are very, very focused on being able to support our candidates and our employers to ensure that candidates' goals and aspirations are achieved, and U.S. healthcare employers are able to continue to provide high quality care. High quality care obviously requires first and foremost available care. So we're really excited about the unique opportunity that we have to impact the lives of not only our candidates and their families, but also the lives of families who are patients here in the U.S. in the healthcare system.
I think, just in general, in addition to the fact that the need and the desire from U.S. employers across the U.S. is the interest is in international nurses. Just the general demand for nurses is still high as well. So I think if you are somebody who is trying to decide if 2025 is a good year for you to come into the US or to start your journey, it is a good time. There's a lot of employers that are hiring in a lot of different locations for many different kinds of nurses.
Yeah. Amy, let me just maybe add just a little further perspective on this. You know, with the ongoing shortage of nurses in the US, obviously a major discussion point and a major point of strategy and even public policy has been, well, let's educate more nurses in the US. Well, guess what? We're doing that. In fact, in 2023, and I'm sure again in 2024, the US will have graduated an all-time record number of nurses. The reality, however, is you can't staff a healthcare facility or a healthcare organization of any kind with all new graduates. US employers are looking for those international candidates that have at least several years of experience. That's always a big point of discussion. How much experience do I need to have, etc. So, in terms of demand, US is educating and graduating more nurses than ever before. I think that trend is going to be challenged in the next 3 to 5 years as the number of uh, high school graduates here in the US levels off and starts to decline somewhat. So I think just another take on the demand side of the equation. It's not like the US is going to educate their way out of this demand that exists for nurses and a demand that significantly exceeds the available supply.
So I think also as we talk about U.S. employers and U.S. nurses, some of the things that we have seen change this year have been in some of the priorities for employers, and some of these are the same. But I think U.S. employers, hospitals, and facilities are very focused on decreasing their turnover and having higher retention. I think obviously almost every employer that's important to, but I think for the international nurse it is important to know that this is something that employers are thinking about from the first time they see a resume for an applicant all the way through when somebody begins work. And this is important to them. So I think, really being prepared to discuss how you're committing to an organization and why an organization is important to you is a really good tip for interviews. And then I think, the immigration process right now is taking somewhere between 18 to 24 months for most folks. And really taking that time to get to know the organization that you are going to be a part of, and actively asking questions and learning all the good things and following them on social media, because it's going to be important to the employers that when you arrive, that you are going to be committed to them for the 3 years of your contract term. I think, oh, sorry, Ron, what would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I think those are all very good points, Amy. I think, I would just circle back a little bit, and back to the experience. That's really not anything that's changed, right? We can talk about that. Maybe just to put a bit of a finer point on the comment about U.S. employers' priorities are budget constraints. I think healthcare providers all over the world are challenged, with their financial objectives and realities. But I want to not have this be a point of concern for nurses, because the direct hire model of international recruitment that we offer to both our candidates and to employers addresses the sort of the financial aspect of an overall staffing strategy that our U.S. employers are facing. In that our direct hire model does two things. It ensures that the employer is able to address their budget constraints in a most effective way, because it is by far and away the most cost-effective model for them to implement and execute an international recruiting strategy, number one. And number two, while our clients are benefiting financially, our applicants are benefiting financially at the same time. It's one of these really interesting win-win situations. And when I say our candidates are benefiting financially in the direct hire model, it's based on the fact that in direct hire, our candidates, right, are employed directly by the facility at which they're working. They are paid exactly the same hourly rate and entitled to the same benefits and have the same obligations as any other similarly qualified domestic applicant working for that employer in a similar position. So our candidates are assured that they're being paid equitably, that they're being paid on par and the equivalent to their U.S. counterparts. So while there are budget constraints, 100% that's correct. I think that's also what's driving the interest and acceptance of our direct hire model on the client side. And at the same time, we're able to assure our candidates that they're being paid fairly, they're being paid consistently with their colleagues, and they don't have to be concerned about some third-party agency paying them differently than the colleagues that they're working shoulder to shoulder with, shift to shift, day to day.
I think maybe something that I think has been a theme this year from employers is there's high focus on using the direct hire model to fill some of the high volume positions in hospitals. Adult med surg and progressive care remain the two most popular jobs requested from worldwide in this calendar year. And there certainly are, I saw some questions about, are there NICU positions and are there other positions? There are other positions that come open, but the most requested this year has been adult med surg and progressive care. Okay, so let's move on to everyone's favorite topic, retrogression. So I think, Ron, you've done several webinars with many different attorneys on this topic this year, a hot topic for everyone. What is your take on retrogression in 2024?
Yeah. Well, Amy, if I had the clear answer to that, I probably wouldn't be here on this webinar this morning. But it is a very, very important consideration, obviously, for our candidates, for our clients, and for us. In summary, I believe we will see modest forward movement in the visa bulletin priority dates in the coming months. I would be hopeful. And quite honestly, I anticipate that as we get into 2025, that we'll see the visa priority dates move forward perhaps to March, late March of 2023. Not ideal, but it certainly is forward movement. So we're expecting forward movement. For those candidates that are already in process, the best thing that they can do to ensure they arrive in the U.S. in the shortest possible time is to ensure that they're doing everything that is being asked of them by their case manager, whether it's passing the English language exam, whether it's obtaining visa screen certification. So, the visa bulletin very much, brings us to a conversation about things we control and things we don't control, right? We don't control, your employer doesn't control, nurses don't control what's happening with the visa bulletin. What we can control is to ensure that each of the required steps are completed as expeditiously as possible. So that's my prediction, sort of on the visa bulletin in the short term. There has recently been an election in the United States. The outcome of that, I think, is well known at this point. I won't take a lot of time today. We did do a very extensive webinar with a couple of really great guest presenters on the likely impact of the election on nurse immigration. And that webinar is posted on our YouTube channel. So if you go to Worldwide Health Staff YouTube channel, you'll see a webinar there with myself, a gentleman named John Russell, and another gentleman named Chris Musillo. Some really excellent information that they were able to share. And if you haven't already seen that webinar recording, I'd certainly encourage you to go to it. But just to kind of make a bit of a point in terms of, is the election going to have a big impact? So on the screen, here's a slide that shows the last five U.S. presidents going back to Bill Clinton. And you'll see over this period of time, there's been three presidents that have represented the Democratic Party, two presidents that have represented the Republican Party, and now we have an incoming president who's going to represent the Republican Party. I share this information in this timeline because over the course of the last 5 presidencies, which have spanned almost 30 years, the EB-3 visa program for nurses has remained literally unchanged. And you can say that that's good news, or you can think that that's bad news. And my answer is you're both right. The good news is the EB-3 visa program is a very stable program. It's a very well-established program, and it's a program where if you follow the steps, if you have an offer from a bona fide employer in the US, you're dealing with a competent recruitment agent, competent legal representation, there is a 99.9 something percent chance that your petition is going to be successful. So the good news is the system is well established. It's predictable. If you get a petition filed, you follow the steps, you will have a visa. The question is when. The not so good news about this not changing over the last 30 years is we're still dealing with annual visa limits, arbitrary quotas that haven't changed in 30 years, even as the US population has increased significantly and the US workforce has changed significantly. Without making any political commentary on the outcome of the election, I think my bias is cautiously positive that we might actually see some legislative or regulatory updates that would be helpful to international nurses and doctors. And I say that only because we now have a situation here in the US where all branches of our government are controlled by the same party. So the presidency, the Senate, and the House of Representatives. A big problem in recent years has been sort of divided control of these branches of government, and these different branches being unable to agree on just about anything. So the fact that we now have one party controlling all branches of government, and the possibility of some common sense actually seeing the light of day. Again, I'm optimistic. I'm cautiously so, and it has nothing to do with the party in power. It simply has to do with the fact that one party is able to operate perhaps somewhat more expeditiously than they have been in the past. So, of course, we watch this closely. We engage in advocacy efforts on an ongoing basis. And I'm sure this will be the subject of additional webinars in the not too distant future.
And I think, we empathize with the patience required to go through the EB-3 green card process. We did a webinar this year with several of our nurses that are in process, and they discussed some of the things that they have done this year while waiting. Which you're welcome to go hear from our advisors, and they had some really great tips. I think one of the most interesting things is that almost all of our advisors that are in process told us that one of the things that they do during the waiting process is support and help others that want to take the NCLEX, help others that have questions, and encourage other people who have a dream to come to the US and work as an RN, which is an amazing way to pay it forward. But we do know that this year, we have made slow and steady progress. Even if it might not feel that way to you, but that is what's happening, and hopefully we'll see the same thing in 2025.
Yeah. Amy, let me maybe just take a moment and just speak to any candidates that are with us today or will be viewing this in the future, if you're a candidate who has not yet started on your journey to the US, your immigration journey to the US, we often get questions about, or questions like, is this a good time for me to start my application? Or should I wait until the priority date is current? Or should I wait until it's more current? The answer very clearly is waiting is not the thing to do. The US immigration process, particularly the EB-3 process for nurses, works very much on a first in, first out basis. If you're not familiar with that term, it essentially means a petition that is filed today is going to receive a visa sooner than a petition filed tomorrow or next week or next month, all things being equal. So if you're wondering whether you should start on your US immigration journey now or whether you should wait, my question to you is, have you decided that your goals and aspirations are to work and live in the United States? If the answer to that question is yes, then the answer to the question of when to start your application is unequivocally as soon as possible. If you've passed the NCLEX exam, great. If you haven't, that's job one. If you've passed the NCLEX exam, but maybe you're not working in a nursing position at the current time, getting into a nursing position is the next thing you want to focus on. If you've passed NCLEX and you're working in a nursing position, your number one priority is to find a great direct hire international recruitment firm. I know one if you're looking for one. Would be happy to get you more information on Worldwide Health Staff. Of course, I'm just kidding. So the sooner you start your petition, the sooner you're going to receive your visa, whether the priority date is current, whether the priority date is backlogged 12 months or 24 months or whatever number of months, until you get a petition filed for you, your processing time is forever, right? You're never getting a visa, regardless of what the processing time is, because you're not even in the queue. So if you're just contemplating whether you want to start on this process or whether this is the right time to start on this process, I would encourage you to bear in mind this reality that the system is well established, the outcome is almost certain. The question is how long, but if your goal is to live and work in the US, getting your application started sooner rather than later is the most important thing that you can do to ensure you and your family are able to arrive in the US as permanent residents in the shortest possible time.
Well said. Well said. Okay, let us turn to, I think, maybe one of the other hot topics of 2024, H-1B RNs. I think this has been many questions about H-1B RNs. Also, there is another webinar that you can watch where Ron and some other legal folks go into great detail about the H-1B RN program. What have we learned this year, Ron, about H-1B RNs?
Yeah. Well, what we've learned is that there's a lot to be learned. And what we've learned is that there's a lot of misunderstanding regarding H-1B visas amongst nurses. So let me see how we can do this without taking up the next hour. So H-1B visas for nurses have become a topic of discussion in the last 15 or 18 months after the Department of Labor made a change in its occupational classification for registered nurses. I'm not going to get into all the weeds on that, but that's kind of the genesis of what has reinvigorated the H-1B discussion. In order for an employer to recruit a nurse on an H-1B visa, there's really two primary requirements that have to be met. The first, it's not 100% requirement, but it's a strong requirement, is that the employer is a not-for-profit employer. That not-for-profit status allows an employer to petition for H-1B visas without any numerical limit or at any time of the year. So no problem finding not-for-profit employers that have nursing needs. That's the easy part of the equation. The more difficult part of the equation that's not well understood is, in order to qualify as a registered nurse in the H-1B category, the employer has to be able to make the case that the RN position being offered to the candidate is in fact a specialty, falls within the purview of being defined as a specialty occupation. Specialty occupations, loosely defined, require the equivalent of a US bachelor's degree, or the Department of Labor here also recognizes an associate's degree plus 6 years of related experience. Okay, that requirement's not that hard to meet. Lots of nurses have a BSN, or they have an associate's degree in 6 years of nurse and 6 years of experience. So that requirement can be met. The hard part is the employer has to then be able to prove that in the clinical department where this nurse is being offered a job, that all other nurses currently working in that department also meet the definition of a special department being a specialty occupation. Most employers have a very, very difficult time meeting that threshold because they employ a number of associate's degree nurses that have less than 6 years of experience. So, pretty simple process from the candidate's point of view. Hey, I have a bachelor's degree, I have an associate's degree and 6 years of experience, I want an H-1B visa. Simple, right? But on the employer side, it's considerably more complex. What we've seen, Amy, over the course of 2024 is various employers, including some of our employers, filing a limited number of H-1B visa applications. And what we're seeing is a very uneven success rate in those petitions being approved or being denied. In our case, we've filed a very modest number of these types of applications, and we've seen an approval rate of, I think, somewhere around 60% or so, 60, maybe a little bit higher. I would say that I'm aware of some employers that have filed larger numbers of H-1B visas. In fact, I know of a large hospital in Georgia that filed 100 H-1B petitions, and all 100 of those petitions were denied. That employer is now taking legal action against USCIS. Again, we won't get into the details of why they feel they're able to do that. That case remains pending. So H-1B does exist. It can be used very, very selectively, and we're using it selectively. It's not a silver bullet to bypass EB3 retrogression. And if there are recruiting agencies telling you that they can get you an H-1B visa in 3 months or 4 months, H-1B visas are issued in 3 months or 4 months or 6 months in some cases, but an application is far from certain to be approved. So extreme caution. If you're looking to go down the H-1B path, it's super critical that you're dealing with a reputable, experienced recruitment agency, one that is for sure a member of the CGF&S Alliance for Ethical Recruiting. And I guess just as a general comment, and I think it applies to the H-1B discussion here very closely, If you're presented with information, whether it's on H-1B or anything else related to immigration, U.S. employment, if it sounds too good to be true, it almost certainly is. If there's somebody that's telling you something different than what every other or most other recruitment agencies are sharing or doing, you should have a red flag go up immediately, and you probably shouldn't walk away from that opportunity. You should run away, right? Over 26 years, the number of heartbreaking stories that we have heard of candidates that have been misled, that have been abused, that have been taken advantage of by unscrupulous, inexperienced, incompetent recruiters. I could write a book. It would be a tragedy. The book would be titled A Tragedy. So I appreciate the motivation of wanting to be able to live and work in the US in the shortest possible time. But you want to do your homework. You want to be dealing with only the most experienced, reputable agencies. If somebody's been in business for 3 months or 6 months and is promising you something that nobody else seems to be offering, it's a clear sign. Run, don't walk, run as fast as you can.
I think maybe in contrast to the H-1B RNs, H-1B medical technologists or medical laboratory scientists, I
Yeah.
think we've seen similar results and success from 2023 to 2024.
Yeah, so medical technologists or medical lab technologists or medical lab scientists, these are all terms that are used somewhat interchangeably. They fit very nicely into the H-1B visa category and the definition of specialty occupation. MLT or MT H-1B applications have a super high approval rate. I'm never going to say 100%, but a very, very, very high approval rate. We are actively and ongoing recruiting MLTs for a number of our not-for-profit employers. We are coming up on the H-1B lottery season. So we have a number of for-profit employers for whom we'll be recruiting and submitting candidates to the lottery. The H-1B visa program functionally, Amy, is really two different things when we're talking about nurses and MLTs.
Yeah. Okay, so then let's move on to 2025 outlook. Some things we anticipate will remain the same. Right? Hospital and facility RN international demand, we believe will continue to be high this year.
Absolutely. All the demographic data, the workforce data says that the current supply and demand imbalance here in the workforce is going to continue to increase. That imbalance is going to continue to increase. So we expect the demand for international recruitment, specifically from a direct hire perspective, for that to remain very strong as we look forward to the new year.
And if you think that this is the right time for you to find a job, stay tuned. Worldwide Health Staff, we've got some really exciting opportunities that will be coming up in January or in the first quarter of the year for nurses all over the country, including, we think, opportunities in California and Texas. So some really exciting things that are going to be coming from hospitals and facilities that we are hiring for specifically. And I think we expect to see something similar in the total number of international NCLEX passers. We anticipate the numbers will probably be similar in Q1 for passers that we see in Q4 of 2024. So I think more of the same there.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that, Amy. And I think, These are certainly, I think, the macro sort of market considerations that we pay very close attention to. But I think I'll add just briefly from a worldwide health staff perspective, as it relates to our candidates as we look ahead to 2025. I think there's a lot of good news as well. We're working, and we've invested significantly in some technological enhancements that we'll be able to roll out to our candidate pool as we get into 2025. Um, this new technology, or this new tool, I think is going to be something that our candidates are going to be very excited about. Something that's really industry leading, the ability to not only interact with us very, very effectively, but also from perspective of managing your application, being fully informed in real time of the status of your application, and many other features. So we're excited to be bringing that to our candidates in 2025. In 2024, we also made a very significant commitment to add considerable clinical resources and support for our candidate pool. And we see our commitment in that area continuing to grow in 2025. So not only do we have a great experienced team capable of helping you navigate every step of the recruitment, immigration, licensure, and relocation process, we're now also adding to that some great clinical supports to help all of our candidates prepare for their transition to U.S. practice. So really excited about that as we look into 2025. There's a couple of other things that we'll just say stand by or stay tuned that we'll be sharing early on as we get into the new year. But these are some things that are well underway and that we look forward to bringing to our candidates in the very near future.
Yeah, and that's a great reason to like and follow us on all the social media channels so that you can get all of the new exciting updates that come from Worldwide, all of the program that we do, but anything exciting that we unveil in 2025, you want to be the first to know. So make sure you follow us on social channels. All right, I think we have some questions in the comments. CJ, are you able to help us with those?
Oh yeah, for sure. And thank you so much for the presentation, Amy and Ron. Yeah, so let's start with this question. Like I've seen many questions about this one, about the requirements to apply. Like how many years do I need, or do I need an NCLEX to apply?
Yeah, great question. I think, almost all of our RN employers do hire nurses after they take the NCLEX exam, but you are free to apply anytime if you are a nurse and you know that you have a dream to come to the US or even work in another country around the world. We would be happy to connect with you and talk with you about the next steps. I think in terms of specific requirements, it does vary from hospital or facility to facility. For some hospitals, they require a BSN and several years of current experience. I think for other hospitals, they require a diploma and a year of experience. We are happy to connect with you individually about your level of experience and what opportunities we have available right now and upcoming in the future. I think one thing, though, to keep in mind is that for all of us in our professional careers, and I think our nurses included, continuing your clinical expertise and your bedside experience and continuing to work there and hone your skills is something that will always help increase your opportunities. And I think Ron mentioned earlier that many of our hospitals are very excited to have nurses that have really great experience. We have amazing nurses that have leadership experience, and I think all of those great things, just like in any job, help to put you at the top of the list for interviews.
All right, thanks, Amy. And just a follow-up question for that. Like is clinical experience welcome here or only hospital experiences?
We do have some facilities that will hire for clinical experience, so we would encourage you to apply. We know that everyone who embarks on this journey, it's a personal journey, and so we'd love to connect you to a recruiter who can help look at your individual experience and your background and let you know what we have available.
And how about prior experience? Like for example, for Rose, she has like 6 years experience in med surg, 3 year experience in ER, and presently in labor and delivery. Do you also consider those?
I mean, I think every hospital is happy to consider all of your prior nursing experience. I think the individual interviews will depend on the hospital's requirements for current nursing experience. But again, please apply and we would love to talk with you individually about the opportunities that we have available.
All right, thanks, Amy. And here's an interesting question about like hours of work, like shift hours in a week. So, is it possible to get 60 hours of shift in a week?
Tell you what, King is
Yeah,
somebody who is like
Amy,
already planning for a very busy life in the US.
Amy, I was going to say, yeah, no problem. Come to work for Worldwide Health Staff.
Oh, yes. We love to work 60 hours a week in the US. You know, I think the reality is that in most hospital systems there are extra shifts, and I think hospitals, almost every hospital system has a shift differential for nights and weekends and picking up extra shifts. Some hospitals or clinics have bonus programs for picking up extra shifts. So I think I haven't yet met somebody who worked in a hospital that said I wanted to work more and they wouldn't let me. So I
Right.
think there's plenty of opportunity there.
Yeah. I agree. I agree, Amy, but I would also just add a word of caution. When someone asks about, can I work 60 hours a week? Um, other considerations, are you're moving to a completely new country. There's an adjustment process. Even if you maybe have left your home country and are currently living, outside of your home country, it is an adjustment. And to, successfully go through that adjustment process, I think you have to give yourself some time. I fully understand and respect the motivation to work 60 hours a week, to establish yourself as quickly as possible, to support family members around the world. And I'm not discouraging anyone from doing it. I just want to make sure, that you're also thinking about yourself and your well-being, and maybe working 60 hours a week when you get here might be really cool for the first 2 or 3 months, right? And the paychecks may be amazing, but is that something that's going to be sustainable for you and your family over the longer term? So that just something to think about. Maybe you can certainly build up your schedule maybe over time, and maybe think about doing that instead of jumping into the deep end, so to speak, right from the get-go.
All right, thanks, Ron and Amy. And when they said like 60 hours of shift in a week, that's like 5 days in a week because like the regular hours for nurses here is like 12 hours per shift. So that's a lot in a week. Uh, so all right, next question is from Diane. Do you accept new grad nurses? So I am graduating from a nursing program here in the US. I have patient care tech experience and clinical rotations.
Yeah, generally, no. The answer is no. And it goes back to my earlier comment about there's a very large number of new graduates here in the US domestically that employers can hire in a far, far less complex process than looking to hire new grads abroad. US employers really value experience, and more so as time has gone on. So the short answer to the question, are we hiring new graduates? The short answer to that is no.
Okay, so we're done with our three last questions. Let's see here. This question is Okay, from Evans. After successful relocation to the US, does Worldwide Health Staff assist a spouse to get employment?
In some cases, depending on the spouse's professional or vocational background, sometimes we've been able to help spouses gain employment at the same location or the same facility where the sponsored spouse is working as a nurse. Certainly, we can provide advice and direction related to the job search process. Uh, so, I can't really be more specific than that because each spouse's situation is unique. Um, but we're certainly open to considering that, and we'll certainly assist as fully as we can wherever we can.
And one other thing I would add is, in some cases, employers themselves are actively have active programs to help spouses seek employment as well. And there are many jobs open in most hospitals and any sort of facility. There's generally lots of opportunities. And many of our excellent employers have great relationships in the community in which they are in. And so I think there's lots of different ways to go about that. And we are certainly happy to point you in the right direction of the resources regarding your specific employer.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, just to add about that. So, we have a friend, like, also a worldwide health staff nurse, and like her husband got employed as a nurse tech in the same like facility. So, like, talk to your employer, and they might help you with your spouses. All right. Next question is from Red. Does Worldwide Health Staff accept applicants that have an active application from other recruitment agency and already DQ'd?
I think the short answer is yes, we would. We would obviously need to know much more about the circumstances of why a candidate is wanting to take such action. And we'd want to make sure that the candidate is also clearly aware of obligations that they may or may not have to their original staffing agency. But the short answer is yes, we'll certainly receive such inquiries. We'll consider them, but we need to know what the specifics are um, before we'll actually move forward.
Okay. Thanks, Ron. And last question from Brenda. For those nurses who already have their petition filed, has retrogression affected their petition to be approved?
Yeah, the short answer to that and the clear answer to that is no. Those two factors, those two things are completely unrelated. It is a great question, but the answer clearly is no. Those two things are unrelated. Retrogression impacts an application only at the very last stage when it comes time to have a visa issued. Retrogression doesn't impact or limit our ability to file additional petitions. Retrogression doesn't impact the rate at which USCIS processes and approves petitions. So, two unrelated things. So just the one thing I will point out, because of the processing times are elongated currently, it doesn't make any sense financially or practically to the US employer or to you as the applicant to have new petitions filed with premium processing. It really accomplishes, in the end, no benefit. The only benefit in the short term is you get an approval notice sooner than you do with regular processing, but ultimately you don't get a visa any faster. So, approvals are taking some time to get. And that's primarily because premium processing is not currently being used for the reasons I've just explained. But to the answer to the question clearly is no. Retrogression doesn't impact the processing time of a petition for filing, for adjudication, for approval, etc. retrogression really bites when it comes time and you're waiting for your embassy interview appointment.
And I've seen a couple of comments about it's taken a long time, and somebody said this. Is this true? I think one great thing about if you have your petition that's processing, you can go on the USCIS website and check the processing times for. There's 2 processing centers, and so you can continue to check the processing times for yourself. And I'll reply in the comments with the link, so that you can go and look and see, and you can check it as many times as you want. But it is taking quite some time for petitions to be approved.
Okay, thanks, Ron and Amy, for answering all those questions. And if you have more questions, please chat with our live recruiters. I put that on the chat. They will be more than happy to assist you in all of your questions. And also, please like and follow us on Facebook for immigration updates and new positions. We'll also put that in the chat. And also, please um, subscribe in our YouTube channel. We have like a different webinar replays in our YouTube channel. You can see there our recent webinar about U.S. election, about retrogression, about our featured employers, and of course featured states. And with that being said, please um, be on on the lookout for our webinar next week. That'll be about the state of Washington. So you can watch us next week for that. And of course, we have this program, Refer a Nurse program, that refer a nurse and earn up to $250 when you refer your RN nurse with us. And if their petition is already filed, you don't need to wait years for your reward. And plus, there's no limit to how many nurses you can refer or how much you can earn. So start referring now. I will also put that on the chat. All right. So I think that's it. So any last thoughts, Amy and Ron?
I think we've covered a whole lot of topics today, and I know there's a lot of other questions. Many of them are case specific. So for those questions, please continue to work closely with your case manager. They're in the best position to assist you. Amy, it's been great to spend this time with you. We got to do this more often. And thank you to everyone that joined us today.
Happy holidays to everybody, and we wish you all a